Can I take as good a shot with this camera, Canon 650D, as I can with this camera, an Olympus E-M1 Mark II? Well, that's the question I'm going to try to answer in this video. That might seem like an obvious question or a folly, and it might just feel a bit pointless really, but I was asked in one of the comments on one of my videos about, exactly that, and how different or how much better or not is a modern mirrorless camera to, let's say, a midlife DSLR. And because I've got access to both of those types of cameras, I thought I'd give it a try and take them both out and see if I can do a comparison, really, because I've not done that before. I've taken lots of pictures with the DSLR cameras, I've taken lots of pictures from my Olympus, but are there any differences? Is the Olympus better? Is the Canon better? Or are they the same? That's the question that I'm going to try to answer today. Why would I say it's a folly? Why would I think that you really can't compare the two? And that's really because they're two different types of camera. One of them is a middle-aged DSLR 2012, and the other one is a 2016 mirrorless camera, and they're kind of full of completely different technology. And not only that, they're different sensor sizes. So the Canon is an APS-C, where the Olympus is a micro four thirds. So the sensor sizes, I think the Canon, you could argue it's twice the size, or the Olympus is half the size, something like that. So there's quite a massive difference between the actual technology and the sensor between the two cameras, and because of that, it's really, really difficult to compare them. Just having a look at the numbers should tell us all we need to know, with the Olympus having a 20 megapixel sensor and the Canon has an 18 megapixel sensor. So actually they're fairly similar sensor size, or pixel amount, I should say, and the actual image sizes are, the resolution's pretty similar, if I'm honest. But I think that's where the similarities end, because the Olympus, it does a 60 frames per second burst mode. That's in electronic shutter, whereas the Canon only does 5. The Olympus's ISO is better. The Canon's is not quite as good. Obviously, the video capabilities on the Olympus is in a different league. It's 4K compared to 1080. There's lots and lots of things going for the Olympus, which it obviously is a negative for the Canon. But as I've said many times in my videos, it's not really about the kit. And if you've watched many of my videos, you'll know that I've used Canon, Nikon, Olympus, Lumix, all different sorts of cameras. And I think I've got okay results. And actually, when you look online and you look at a really nice photo, I wonder if the first thing you think about is what type of kit was that picture taken on. It probably isn't. And that's probably the last thing you think of. That's why I think it doesn't matter sort of what camera you have, you should be able to take a good shot, especially with any of these modern makes of cameras. All the best brands, they all make very good cameras. And something else I've said in the past is that what a new modern ultra smart camera does for you, it doesn't make you a better photographer, it doesn't take better pictures, it just makes taking those pictures easier. As an example, as I've said, the Olympus will take 60 frames per second, whereas the Canon only takes 5. So if you imagine, if you're a bird or a wildlife photographer and you're trying to take a picture of a bird in flight, you've got 60 chances with your Olympus compared to 5 with a Canon. That just shows you could still get perfectly good pictures or awesome pictures with both cameras, but you've got a much better chance of nailing that bird in flight with the Olympus with its 60 frames than you have with the Canon with its 5. But it doesn't mean to say you can't do it. It doesn't mean to say it won't be as good. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and find a composition here at where I am around Lincoln, and I'm going to take a picture with both the camera, the Canon and the Olympus, and then I'll get home and we can compare the two and see if there's which one's best, if there's any difference, or if there's no difference at all. That will be really interesting for us. Of course, I have got a much bigger challenge than just the metrics on the cameras, on the bodies, because on my Olympus I've got prime lenses, and you would expect, or any reasonable photographer would expect, the prime lenses to be sharper than the kit lens, the 1855 kit lens I've got on the Canon. So I've got to bear that in mind, that I really can't sort of test the sharpness of the image because of the different quality in lenses. That's another thing to rule out. So I'm going to have a little wander around the centre of Lincoln. I'm going to try to find a composition that I can use to do this test with. I might find a couple, more than one, just to make sure that I've got the right image and I'm, up for giving it a fair shot. This is Ellis Mill behind me, and it's a mill that stands right in the centre of Lincoln and overlooks the West Common. So it's quite a prominent building in the city. It was built in 1798, so what that makes it nearly 250 years old. So so that's quite an old building. It's been here for nearly, 230 years, whatever it is. I think it'd make a good subject. I was hoping that the sky would be orange behind it, because sometimes the sky is. You've got to come here at the right time. Unfortunately, it's been a cloudy day today. The sun did come out, but now it's gone back in again, so it only came out for a few minutes. I guess if I wait here long enough, it might come back out again. But I'm going to go for that composition. I'm going to set both cameras up and let's take those pictures. So first up is the Canon, and I've got it in portrait mode because I want to obviously get a windmill, which is a tall standing building, and let's have a look on the back of the camera and see what it looks like. Here we are, the Canon setup, and I've got 1/80th of a second, f8, base ISO. I've got the focus point right in the middle so I can keep exactly the same focus point. Apologies if you're wobbling about a bit. I try my best to straighten up the video, but that's just because it's a bit windy. But yeah, that's what I've got. I'm going to just take this shot now. That's what it looks like now. I'm going to take that shot, see where the focus is. Boom, that's it. That's what I'm taken. And now I'm going to get the Olympus on and I can have a look at the Olympus. And here's my Olympus picture. So once again, I've got 1/40th of a second. So it's fairly similar. So f8 and 1/40th of a second. There's almost nothing in it between the Olympus and the Canon as far as shutter speed and aperture. Well, I've kept the aperture the same. I'm on base ISO here, and let's make sure I am focused on the middle, exactly the same place pretty much that I was with the Canon. So we'll take that one. That's that done. So there are my two pictures. Now let's find another one and see if we can get another shot. I can't really find another shot I like, so I'll go for that one of the cathedral without looking down this cobbled street. Unfortunately, it's got that sort of sign, that flappy sign in the way, which is a bit annoying, but I suppose it adds a bit of interest to the image. So I'll get set up, I'll take that and let's have a look. So this time I've got the cathedral towers in the middle, and I've got that fish and chip sign there, this winding cobbled street. f8 again, 1/15th of a second base ISO. I'm focusing right in the middle. Obviously, as always, people come in the way. As soon as those people go out, I'm going to take this shot, and then I'll get the, take one at least, and then I will get the Canon on as more cars come past. The only trouble this evening is that Lincoln's a bit busy tonight. Hopefully that car's not going to stop right there. That will be very annoying. But Lincoln's a bit busy tonight. There's 3 people in town. So here's the Canon. I've got 1/6 of a second, f8, same as before. I'm going to take this picture now before anything else comes, and that's it done. So that should be all right. I'm looking forward to that. I'm back home now, so let's have a look on my computer at the comparison of these two images, the Canon and the Olympus. Oh, by the way, before we do, if you've got this far in the video and you're enjoying it and you haven't subscribed, why not consider subscribing? It would be amazing if you did. And if hopefully you're enjoying this photography content I'm trying to create. And I'm going to guess that you probably haven't seen a video quite like this. I know it's a bit madcap to try to compare these two cameras, but this is the sort of photography content I'm trying to create, these different videos that you don't normally see. And I've had a look online and I couldn't find anything quite the same as this. If you are enjoying my content, it would be fantastic if you would subscribe. And if you have already, thank you very much indeed. It's wonderful that you do that. So here we have the two images. On the left is the Olympus, and on the right is the Canon. Obviously, I slightly underexposed the Canon, and I've slightly didn't make it straight. So what I'll do, I'll just add one stop of exposure to the Canon just to bring it up in line, pretty much in line with the Olympus, maybe still slightly under, but that's fine. But yeah, in all intents and purposes, comparing these two images, they actually look almost identical. There's almost nothing between these two images. They look the same. I can't see, just from this view, you wouldn't be able to tell if you tidied these up and gave them these raw files, because these are raw files with no editing done. Like I say, the only thing I've done is added one stop of exposure to the Canon. There's no change to these two files whatsoever. They look pretty identical. Like I said, the megapixels, the sensors were pretty much the same anyway. They're both about 18 and 20 megapixels. Let's zoom in on one of these windows and just have a look, even though I said I'm not going to check for clarity, for the sharpness, because of the lenses. But still, even though the Canon is using an 1855 lens, you could easily argue that is as sharp as the 17mm on the Olympus. It looks just as sharp to me. I don't see any difference whatsoever. So I think the windmill picture, definitely, there's no difference. I don't think you can tell there's any difference between those two images. Considering the one on the left, the Olympus, is a 2000 camera, and the one on the right is a 1000 camera. There's not 1,000 between them. There's not 1,000 between them. They look identical. Let's have a look at the picture of the cathedral, looking down that cobbled street, and see if there's any difference with those two. Here's the picture of the cathedral looking down this cobbled street. Once again, on the left I've got the Olympus image, and on the right I've got the Canon, and these are the raw files. There's no edits been done on these images. First thing I noticed though is that the colours on the Olympus, on this picture, it stands out more than the windmill. The colours are sort of richer on the Olympus. That's all. It might be just a white balance thing, but from the raw file, there's a more of an orange glow on on this wall than there is here. The cathedral towers look slightly more saturated than they do here. These look bluer, but like I say, that might be because of the color balance. So that might be it. So once again, apart from this slight color change, you can see it in the tiles as well, there's nothing between these images. They look pretty similar. Obviously I've zoomed in a little bit more on this image on the Canon than the 17mm on the Olympus, but they look pretty similar. Let's have a zoom in on there's that fish and chip sign there, look, that I mentioned earlier. Let's have a look at this sign here. Look, a zoom in, 100% fish and chip takeaway, it says, and that's a nice thing to compare. In this instance, the Canon is slightly brighter than the Olympus, and but that's all really. So once again, you can see definitely here that the orange is in these bricks, and the sort of yellow in this stone looks slightly nicer or slightly more saturated than it does on the Canon, but like that's not important really. Yeah, so we can have a look at the wording takeaway. It actually looks, perhaps because of the brightness of the image, the wording on this fish and chip sign looks slightly sharper or slightly brighter, stands out more, let's say. I'm not saying it's sharper, it stands out more. But yeah, once again, I am going to say that these images are identical. You wouldn't be able to tell that the image from this camera cost twice as much from the image from this camera. Equally, I don't think you'd be able to tell that this was taken with a mirrorless camera and this was taken with a DSLR camera. They look the same. I think that there's, for this little exercise at least, there's no difference. So I hope you agree. Looking at these two images and comparing them both side by side, there's no difference between them. You couldn't really tell. So you could be happily you can happily go out with your Canon DSLR and you can be confident that the person next to you has got a modern Olympus mirrorless camera. You're going to get just as nice shots, just as good shots with your Canon as you can with the Olympus. And I'll go as far as saying that whether it's a Canon, a Nikon, whatever it is that you've got, a Sony, you will, the results will be the same. The picture will be the same. That's my view. That's what I've deduced or concluded from this little test, this little experiment. Thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's been interesting and informative. And if you have, why not give it a like? That would be amazing if you did. Thank you very much again, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheerio.